Good morning everyone, welcome to the channel. Hope you're having a fantastic day. So today we're doing maintenance on the Pioneer, and it is not a video I expected to make by any means. So let me tell you what's going on. Probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been having a clunk. I haven't really ridden that much because in the previous couple videos you saw that I put new tie rods on, and that really tightened everything up and made my steering nice and tight. Well, now I got a clunk. What I mean by a clunk, every time I go and make a hard stop, hard acceleration, or even a moderate stop, there's a clunk. And can't figure it out. So let me show you what I've looked at. So one of the great things about having a Pioneer on 35s and portals is you don't need to jack it up to roll underneath it. Now yes, I know the jack is there, but I'll show you why here in a minute. So underneath here is your sub transmission, and this is your shifter. Now I can't find this clunk, so I've gone up, I've shook this, I've checked every engine mount that you can. Check the U-joints, there's a little bit there here, and that's just the clogs in here. Twist this in and out, nothing. Nothing's loose. And yes, I know it's dirty, but I really don't care about cleaning underneath here. So what could it be? Let's go to the fronts. So I come around to the front, and I'm still looking. You know, I can't figure anything out. So I come up here, I'm shaking. All this is nice and tight. The horn. Come around here, shaking. Nothing. So there's my problem. I've been looking at this thing for at least 2 solid weeks trying to find this clunk. Spend 15-20 minutes here and there. I mean, it's gotten to the point where I pulled the skid plates because I couldn't find anything. So what did I do? No, I didn't take it to the dealership because I don't trust a lot of them. So I took it to Shock It Off-Road. Ryan, who runs that channel. And Ryan's probably one of the better mechanics I know, and he is way more knowledgeable and way more competent than anything I can ever do when it comes to welding or working on stuff. So if you haven't checked out his channel, check it out. He does a lot of cool stuff. Anyways, so we took it over there and we had the same problem. Rolling around, couldn't find anything. But this is where I needed a second set of hands. So what we did is we went ahead and we jacked up and we rolled this front tire. And while Ryan was rolling this front tire, I was in the driver's seat and I jammed the brakes on because second set of eyes, right? Thud, we heard it. All right, let's do this again. Rolled it, did it again, and bam, we found it. And I should have found this on my own, but let me show you what we found. Here's your lower A-arm mount towards the rear. We checked all the nuts, everything looks good. When I pull on the front part of the A-arm, everything's good. This back part, right there. The bushing is worn out. And let me tell you, it's driving me up a wall. As everyone knows, you drive a vehicle long enough, you know your car makes a new sound, a weird sound. There it is. So now what we do, we gotta change the bushing. Well, I'm gonna cheat. Remember, 4-inch portal lift and 35s. So how do you change this? Well, with the normal Pioneer, it's a little bit more difficult because you gotta kind of take the spindle off and all that good stuff, where you gotta pull it upper A-arms and lower A-arms and the axle, but portals, you get a cheat. So with my portal lift, all I gotta do is you move those 2 bolts. I can easily get to my lower ball joint, which you can't get to this on the stock spindles. So now, how am I gonna cheat with doing that? Well, I'm gonna lower this thing and put just enough weight on the ground, but I'm gonna use a jack to hold it up, and hopefully this works because I've never tried it before. One thing we are gonna do is we're gonna place the bushings on both the front and the rear. I know some people say, hey, if the front's not worn out, don't change it, but you know what? I've got the parts. I'm just gonna do it. So, here is the bushing kit from Super ATV. I've had this for quite a while. I've already had to replace 1 set of upper bushings. Here is the problem with their kit. So these are the lowers, and these are the uppers, and then these are the sleeves that go in there. So here's your lower. That's it. These bushings are not thick at all. This part is, this part isn't. The problem is, so you put this in there and there's this gap. That's great. That's where the grease goes when you grease it. but there is no groove anywhere on those bushings. And that's why you can buy a set of upgraded ones from RB3 that have grease screws built into them when they mill them out. My problem is I already have these. I hate to throw money away, so we can go ahead and throw these in there because we don't know how much longer we're gonna have these front A-arms. Something might be changing in the future. All right, let's see if I can do this without taking everything apart, like the front shock up here. So what I've already gone ahead and done is I removed the cotter pin down here. This is a 19mm, and I removed the 2 nuts from the bolt to hold the A-arm on. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take off this ball joint. And I'm kind of doing this like I would do on the trail, put my jack under the center. So you really only need a couple of tools. A couple 19mm, or a couple 18mm for your A-arm bolts, and then the 19 for the ball joint. We're gonna go ahead and give that a tap. There it goes. And for those of you wondering, I do have the jack supporting this, even though there is weight on this tire. And I've always had to use a wrench to pry this out. 1. 2. So let's look at these. Okay. So everything looks good, but we're getting the play here. There's no excessive wear on the Super ATV brace. So let's pop these out. All right, on the table behind me, I have the A-arm. I took it outside, I put some degreaser on it, cleaned it up a little bit, got all the joints cleaned out. Let me show you what I found. So if you look right in here in your Super ATV A-arm, right there is the end of the grease port. And that's what goes into just the center channel. The problem I found with this back one is it was all hard in there. And this is the bushings from the rear. At first they didn't look so bad. It was kind of miffed. Don't pay attention to that. That's why I use a screwdriver to pop it out. But it was seized almost. And this side here is noticeably smaller than a new one. And I don't think the camera's gonna show it. It's thinner, it's more worn. And this one I really had to work to get it off. It's almost like the bushing is seized in there. It doesn't want to come off again. There it goes. Now it's moving. And there's just hardly any grease. I pre-grease these before I put them on. The front one doesn't look bad. You can definitely tell it's thicker. There was some clumps of hard grease. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the new bushings in. I'm going to pre-grease everything, put it on the Pioneer. And what I've learned with the Pioneers and these Super ATV arms, because they're so tight when you initially install them, is before you tighten the bolts, get your grease gun out. So I'm going to cover everything here with the same grease, and then I will put it back on, and before I tighten it, we'll get the grease gun, we'll pump grease through as much as we can, and get it reinstalled. The new bushings are very tight compared to the old ones, which I expected because the old ones were worn out, at least the rear one. But I pre-grease everything like I said earlier, and the problem with pre-greasing is you can't actually push the bushings in without removing the grease zert. So what I do is I pre-grease it, I remove the grease zert, and for those wondering, it's just a 7mm. And that way I can push everything in, and I actually use a C-clamp with a little piece of flat stock on the other side so I don't damage, and it's pre-greased. Now it's just time to reinstall. Okay, here we go. So with the Super ATV brace, man, these are a lot tighter. So with the Super ATV brace, I have to bring the rear bolt, the front bolt from the rear to clear because of this bolt right here. And then for the rear bolt, same thing, I go from the front though to the rear because of that bolt. Now we'll go ahead, we'll clean this grease off before we put the nuts on. Next thing we'll do is go ahead and put the nuts on after they get cleaned off. And these are nylock nuts. Probably should replace them next time. Okay, now put the grease zerts back in, because right now it's easy to get to. And as always, we will hand start them, and then we'll just snug them down. Remember, these don't take a lot. Next thing is I'm gonna go ahead and with the grease gun, I'm gonna grease these. And see, I can already see the bushings pushing out just a little bit, which is good. So I get any extra grease we can in there because it's very tight because there's no grooves. And yeah, even though we pre-greased them, we still want to make sure that every area is full of grease if we can while it's loose. So for the lower ball joint, you can't press it all the way up without the nut. And for those of you like, oh, you took it out, it could have moved, I can always jack the jack up and the suspension will press down and bring that tire in. So I'm not overly worried. All right, so I went ahead, I got this tightened up. I had to move the camera, so got the cotter pin in. The last thing we have to do is tighten up these joints here. Now, some people always ask me, why do you not tighten your A-arms when it's in the air? Well, those bushings are in there, so I want this thing to be at ride height before I tighten any suspension components. So if I were to loosen the other side, I would make sure it's at ride height with the weight of the machine on there. I'm not as worried about the machine settling, you know, shaking back and forth for suspension. I just want the front end on here because those bushings, I don't know if they have a memory, whatnot, but when you tighten them down, you torque them down to the correct spec, I want to make sure that they are on the right height. So let's go ahead and get that done. So go ahead and slowly lower this. We'll get those nice and tight. Now the other thing I did check while I had it up is that these jam nuts, both the front and the rear right there, are tight. I've gone around the whole thing. Everything was nice and tight. My new cotter pin is in. I did check the ball joints for play, even though these ones are new. So you can see the weight is on here. So let's get these tightened up. They're an 18 millimeter. Okay, moment of truth. I jacked it back up. I got everything nice and torqued down. And let's see. So as you can see, it's nice and in the air. Let's listen. Only movement is right there in the jack. Nice and tight. Let's double check this side. Good. And good. So there you have it. Easy 15-minute fix, if you're running portals, of course. With the Super ATV bushings, again, the issue they have is there's no channel for the grease to flow in. So pre-grease them is the lesson learned. The other lesson is don't pull your hair out. Ask a friend if you need some help. Special thanks to Ryan at Chalk Off-Road. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe. If you haven't, please click it. It helps the channel. Until next time.